Testing, testing. Hello, hello. Hello, hello. Volume test. Well. Had a few things going on last couple days, so I wasn't able to get on and stream at all. It's kind of busy, so some shit done. Normally stream pretty much all day, every day. So it's hard to find time to do things.
We've lost the lead. Damn it out! We've secured the lead. Throwing flash grenade! Secured the kill.
Man, got extra warming up to do. Holy shit. Missed my shot. Whiffed it.
Hostile UAV in the area. Copy that. UAV is on station.
Requesting close air. Target
Copy
mark.
that. Sparrow 6 inbound for SA.
Oh man, oh man. I'm trying to meet up to play a little bit with some friends, but can't quite seem to match up.
Using drill charge.
Wrecked him. Thank you very much.
Covering you.
Oh, lucky shooting Tex. He's camping by that little SUV right next to the bus.
Got your cover.
What up, Aaron? Let's shoot the one big sexy. Oh man. I'm just still working on the old environment. Wow, lucky shot, bitch. Look at this garbage. Oh, he's got a hard scope, that's why. What a bitch. What a bitch.
Throwing flash grenade.
Man. Was a
Hey,
very
GG's, yo. That
low
shit was
end
fun as
warm
fuck.
up. Low end warm up. Good game, guys. Oh, I did not do well. Although I never necessarily do well, but you know. What you up to today, Bayron? Any fun? What the hell? Got a Hootie McDootie. My little monitor is behind. It hasn't popped up with who that was yet. But I heard the noise. Come on, tell me who it is.
Hard point.
Hold on, it's not catching up, so I gotta pull up the thing. Commander Ray Hall has subscribed. Thanks for the sub, man. Appreciate it. What you up to? How you doing? I'm playing Call of Duty very badly myself. That's kind of what I do. Play very badly. And I shoot dead bodies, apparently. Could have swore that was somebody prone on the ground there. Lucky bitch. Could have swore I had that headshot, but aha, got that one. Oh, too slow. Just can't compete with these aim assist on the controller. Does the work for you. Oh, I've seen so many videos where people who don't even use controller get more kills with the controller. It's that broken. You just have to be roughly aiming in their direction and pull the trigger, left trigger for ADS. Just ox right onto him. Especially that rotational assist, it'll just follow enemies. Like that, I wouldn't have missed because it would have just followed them for me. Kind of sucks. Ooh, teammate saved my ass there. Wow, I missed the shit out of that shot.
Damn.
Oh, lucky bitch. Not sure how that grenade missed. I threw it right on him. Yeah, we're gonna get a better MMR. Oh, fuck this game. Goddamn. I'm gonna have to start using the cheat that everyone else uses, and that is to get a second account and just go in and just basically AFK, just fucking dick off for like 3 matches till it puts you in a low MMR, and then you join that second account, and it throws you into matches that aren't against sweaty cunts who are playing like they're in a fucking tournament. Oh man, this game is fatiguing with how many fucking issues it has and how shitty the matchmaking rank system fails. It fails hard. Fails hard. It's like just a potent combination of really Really bad shit. It's like the matchmaking rank system sucks. The time to kill is so fucking small if you don't have like the best internet and like the quickest reflexes and the most meta gun. You're gonna get beat out or get shot from behind. Because that's another thing is between the spawns and the maps having 30 ways in and 35 ways out, he just flanked. Alright, that was a fucking headshot. And I didn't kill that cunt.
Friendly UAV on station. We're taking the lead.
I mean, even a shoulder shot. Upper body. It's like upper torso, like shoulders, and headshot are all supposed to be one shot with this gun. Still fucking us on the matchmaking, so we're gonna bounce out again. Garbage ass game. Fuck. Makes me just want to go play a better game. Might just do that. Especially when I don't have anybody to play with. It's real fucking fatiguing to play this game. I haven't quite figured out what I would rather play right now, though. It worked out that I was busy the last couple days because I didn't really feel like playing COD anyway, so it kind of worked out. So I'm not sure what I want to play in its stead. Could be fun, but kind of burnt out on the server I play on, having real shitty vehicle rules. And that's the worst part is it used to be a great server, but then they kind of started sucking the algorithms cock and focusing more on getting more people. They stopped focusing on quality over quantity. And they rushed straight to the let's just get as many people on this server as possible. And all it resulted in was everyone's experience being shitty. um, so yeah, I don't know. I don't know what I want to play. Uh, don't know if I'm more in the mood for like a survival game or like a better shooter and have all the fucking issues. Um, I also have to call my ISP today because they've been fucking up. They've given we've only been getting a very small portion of the download speed and upload speed that we're supposed to get. Like, I'll be telling them that we proportionate to the lack of speed comparative to what we pay for. I'm gonna have to deal with that here in a little while. Giving them a call. I don't open for a little while yet though, so I can't do it now. Plus, they'll probably have me run some tests and shit. I'll probably have to drop the stream and fire it back up. Which, if I'm gonna play something different, probably what I would end up doing anyway. What the hell? I could smell it. Right. Yeah, had some shit to do the last couple days. I was pretty busy. Who? Potatoes. Boil them, mash them, stick them in a stew. Oh boy. Ray Hall with the like and follow on Facebook. You're a rarity. Thanks, appreciate it. It's like I get one of those. It's like one of those for every like 100 or more on the others. It's like it's definitely interesting. Although I would say the Trovo interaction is even lower, which is funny because there's always at least a few counters, I guess, that it says I have coming from Trovo, which is like funny because I'm fairly confident that's like the people who own Trovo like just like trying just to boost shit on there or something because it is always and forever without fail. Dick of the Spevel. What you watching? I have not. Interesting. Spent spent a couple hours either Saturday or Sunday overclocking my processor a fair bit so that it quit stuttering quite so bad, and COD
Alpha secure.
seemed to help a fair bit.
Enemy securing Bravo.
No, I found out that and it's not even consistent. It's not always a problem, which is extra frustrating. But
The enemy
using the plugin from NDI or OBS, the NDI plugin in OBS to send over to to send the stream over the network to my stream PC. It
securing Alpha.
it's causing that. Yeah, it's causing that.
Securing Charlie. The enemy holds all objectives. Get it together.
I actually, interestingly, I got better performance when I was streaming on the same PC. I got better performance when I switched over to Streamlabs than I got with OBS. While I was actually encoding, like it was like.
UAV online.
I don't know what it used to be. I know it's 6,000 now, but
Counter UAV is active.
so there's actually a setting. There's a setting that tells it to enforce streaming service bitrate. You just have to make sure that's not checked or whatever, and it won't do that. But yeah, when I was streaming on the same PC, I had better like idle, like really low CPU usage from OBS. But then as soon as I went live, it's like something was wrong with OBS's encoder, and it just went to shit, and it fucked my PC. And so when I switched to Streamlabs, while actually streaming and encoding the stream on the same machine as gaming, the performance was better. But since all I need OBS on my game PC to do is just send the stream over NDI to the stream PC over the network, at least in the beginning, it wasn't a problem. But like I said, then I found, and yet again, the most frustrating part is the inconsistency, because it doesn't always do it. But I found that while the stream is being sent over NDI to the network, that's when I'm getting fucked on performance-wise. Because I'll get anywhere from like 30. It's better now, but before I'd get like between 30 and 40 while streaming. But I'd get up to like 80 or 90 frames per second without OBS running.
We've lost Bravo.
Like it's fucky. I don't understand why it's such a huge drop.
Hostile UAV in the area.
Because
Securing objective Bravo. The enemy holds 2 objectives. Move on them now. Secure Bravo.
yep.
Objective Bravo secure. Enemy securing Charlie. Enemy taking Charlie.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing is,
Taking Alpha.
Blizzard gets shit on a lot, but to be fair, objectively speaking, what they do well is they take other people's good ideas and make them their own version and polish the shit out of them with their unlimited resources.
Enemy taking Bravo.
Yep.
We control all objectives.
Yep.
Taking Alpha. We're losing Bravo. We're losing Charlie.
Friendly VTOL entering this sector.
The enemy
you
took
covered.
Alpha.
Yep. Yeah.
Quick fix. Taking Charlie. Objective Bravo is compromised. Take it back. Objective Charlie.
Mr. Phone lurking. What's up, Mr. Phone?
Securing objective Bravo.
Well, you know, that's kind of where I was.
Taking Alpha. Enemy securing Charlie. All objectives. Assault vector taking Alpha. Securing objective Charlie. Objective Alpha secure. Enemy securing Alpha. We're taking Bravo. We're losing Alpha. Control Bravo. Securing Charlie.
Enemy UAV active.
Charlie. We're losing Bravo. We hold all objectives. Keep them secure. The enemy took Bravo.
Yep.
Hostile VTOL incoming.
Yep. Most people don't even know there's a YouTube app for music separately. Like, that was one thing they actually found out.
UAV is orbiting the area.
We're losing Charlie. All objectives secure. Expect counterattacks. The lead is ours. The enemy took Charlie.
Hostile advanced UAV is active.
Securing Alpha.
Cheeky little cunt. Well, that's kind of why I was bringing up Blizzard earlier. That's kind of what YouTube does for like platforms. Is like, you know, they don't necessarily, you know, they were arguably the first like video platform. The rest, you know, quote unquote copied from, but the others were innovative and smart and did things that YouTube didn't, which is why they found their niche and expanded. But you know, eventually they kind of just stuck with that and didn't do much more with it. And YouTube was like, hey, there's room for improvement here. There's some market to be tapped here. Let's swing our weight around. And they made their own version of basically TikTok and with live streaming with Twitch. And so, you know, they'll get there. They're throwing their weight behind it and putting their own polish to it.
Enemies taking Bravo. Securing objective Charlie. We control 2 objectives. We control all objectives. We've taken the lead. Enemy securing Bravo. Objective Bravo is compromised. Enemies taking Charlie. We're taking Bravo. We're losing Charlie.
Our counter
All objectives secure.
friendly UAV online.
Enemy securing Charlie.
Well, that's one thing I noticed when I opened up Streamlabs. Is one thing that they have on OBS, like hands down, is that they have a far more like polished integration. Wow, it's almost like the difference between iPhone and Android. Like you've got way more control with Android. You got way more control with OBS. But if all you need is just like a dozen like key polished, like in-house, like already built-in features, you go with Apple. And you know, for phones, I like Android myself, but at least so far, where I'm new to it, and I'm not like, you know, I could see myself eventually switching to OBS for the far more like fine-grained, powerful control over your stream that OBS offers. But for the streamlined simplicity of everything just being integrated, like everything is like one click. Like I literally, when I go live, it's got a section where it will just copy paste basically to all the platforms that you stream to, and it will just simultaneously stream instead of having to download a plugin and sign in with all your details on a third-party application, multistream.io or whatever, which is what I started with. I did that for like a week on with OBS, and then I switched over to Streamlabs to give them a try. And I was like, you know what, for me, at least for like the foreseeable future, this is like more streamlined. And I had heard, I mean, what you said was basically what everyone else said, was of the two, usually Streamlabs is the more performance hungry. But in my situation, for some weird reason, I saw better performance while streaming with Streamlabs than I did when I was streaming with OBS, even though the non-streaming CPU usage was lower with OBS. It was weird. It was the weirdest fucking... Audio. This is that, yeah, this main one. Yeah, good old voice meter. Well, I haven't even dived into that part of it yet. What I have it doing is, so I've got it set to where only the PC audio comes through to me on my headset, you know, or I could turn it on for my speakers too if I wanted and have it come through both. If it's USB. Well, that's one of those things where I plan, you know, I mean, if we're just talking like plans here, you know, like what I'll do when I have the money for it and get to the point where I feel like it's actually going to make a positive like improvement to the stream and everything like that is, you know, going with like, I mean, this will become my stream PC, and then I'll end up having this beefy monster of a gaming PC, just so I could really squeeze every drop out of whatever game I'm playing and streaming. And eventually I'll have a capture card that will either work. There's two options. I either have to go with, I think the cheapest ones are just shy of $2,000 for a DisplayPort capture card, because my main monitor is DisplayPort. Because at the time I got this monitor, they did not have high refresh rate HDMI. They have them now. HDMI 2.1 or 2 or whatever. I don't know, whatever fucking revision they're on, can go like pretty high. Like at the time they couldn't. If you wanted high refresh rate, you needed a DisplayPort, which is kind of one of those things where what's funny about some technologies in the past, like the difference between like DVD and like Blu-ray. Blu-ray was like so much better, but the reason why it only kind of got a bit of a leg up on DVD is because by the time people were giving a shit about higher density storage media, the industry had already moved on, and that's kind of what happened with DisplayPort. Is that theoretically, and like by the math and everything, DisplayPort's far more it's far more like free because there's no limitation. Well, there are, but they're far higher because of the way that it's done. They're like you can only have a certain number of HDMI out ports on a graphics card, but you can have a far higher number of DisplayPort, which I don't pretend to understand exactly why. I was fairly familiar with the technology and like the know-how behind it at one point, but I have since forgotten because it's not something I routinely, constantly follow. But like it's still like HDMI is the far more common one. It's pretty much what every TV and every like media box and every console uses. Really the only things that use DisplayPort are PC peripherals, like specific computer monitors, or and there's usually at least one or two ports on a graphics card. So it's kind of this weird limbo that the industry's in, where there's also a lot of streamers only stream from one PC. If everyone's dual streamed and most of them are using DisplayPort, there'd probably be a lot more support in the industry. But like even Elgato, which yeah, the simplicity of it, it would be great to do just one. Gotcha. Yeah, one thing one thing that like I look forward to eventually being able to do will just be, if I can actually get a capture card, because that takes all the additional processing power of a stream 100% off your machine, off your game PC, because literally all it's doing is just, the video out feed. Instead of going directly to your monitor, it routes through the capture card. And there is like adapters and shit. What I would end up having to do is look into if this monitor supports a higher refresh rate. Like if the port supports it, then I would just have to get a cord that supports higher refresh rate HDMI, and then just have that main gaming monitor use HDMI instead of DisplayPort. But if it doesn't do that, because if I'm just being honest, I'm doubtful that it does, because when I bought it, it was before like HDMI had really caught up to DisplayPort in terms of high resolution combined with high refresh rate, and it's 1440p 140 hertz monitor, or 144 or whatever. But like the alternative solution, which I did actually get working, I owned a Elgato capture card for a brief time way back when I was first entertaining the idea of dabbling into streaming, and ended up giving it to a friend because it just didn't quite work for me with my setup. It was only it would only allow you to stream up to 1080p up to 60 frames per second, which like for a stream is like perfectly fine, but they hadn't yet started integrating pass-through technology. So I got all sorts of finagly when I tried to get it to the point where I could still use the full 1440. Oh, nothing. I was just telling him when I owned a capture card, the only one I've ever owned is before they started doing the pass through. So in order to make use of the 1440p and 144 hertz, I had to do this weird like duplicate within the software and send one feed out to the capture card, and it ended up having to render the game twice, which was far worse than just running the stream off the PC natively. Didn't actually do any good. It was back before Elgato like started doing like pass through, or other any company that makes capture cards. So I'd have to get one eventually that would allow me to do basically a video feed out to the capture card and have it just duplicate it. But either that or do like a pass through. It's weird. I'm in a weird position because of the monitor that I have. Like to do it right, if money wasn't necessarily the unfortunate biggest concern, then I would buy at least a new main monitor that with HDMI, high resolution, high refresh rate, because that's the simplest way to interface with the capture card. Is just to get a nice main monitor that I would game off of, which eventually I do want to do. I do want to get like a widescreen monitor and make use of wide FOVs without inducing the fisheye look. And if you can get like a widescreen monitor that maintains the aspect ratio at a wide FOV, like that would be great. And then what I would do would be, if all I were to do was to get one of those, I would make sure it was high refresh rate, high resolution, HDMI, so they could actually make use of a capture card. And then I would just turn the two monitors I have on their side next to a widescreen monitor, so the total width. Because right now I have like I don't even remember. It was like a 72-inch wide desk, and probably 60 to 65 of that is taken up by my three monitors, because they're all like the main one's a 27-inch monitor, and the two side ones are 22-inch monitors, and they're all sitting in landscape right next to each other. So it's a wide fucker. So I could easily do these on their side, the side ones, and have like a 32 or 35 or whatever inch widescreen, and it would probably be about the same width. Just a bit more of it would be specific to the main screen, and then I would set this one. I'd have to get a new mount too. I'd have to get a new, either that or like a secondary one that would clamp right next to the current mount, and put my current main monitor like above as like just like my main monitoring, and then have the one side one be like for chat on one side, and the other one be like all my monitoring programs, and then probably have like a copy of the stream up on the extra monitor and shit like that. I don't know. It's this whole big like, I eventually, if I get to the point where I can afford to upgrade my shit to make it nice and set up to really do a good job with all what I'm aiming to get out of the stream, and offer to anybody interested in watching and shit like that. It's this big whole long list of shit that it's like goals, it's like 6 months, 1 year, 5 year, 10-year goals type of deal. It's like, you know, streaming. Right. Yeah, there was it's kind of one of those things where it's just like constant, not quite debate, but like almost like people wonder to themselves and maybe you know kind of develop some ideas in their mind, at least in a hypothetical sense. And so Linus from Linus Tech Tips actually put it to the test. So they got like 30 different people from like their office to play a game like side by side on multiple different refresh rates, and they were like, yeah, there's a astronomical jump from like 30 to 60. That was the kind of conventional wisdom back when they went from like consoles at 30 to consoles at 60, and everyone was like, holy shit, yeah, this is so much smoother. There's still a pretty damn noticeable jump from 60 to 120. But then it starts to get pretty diminishing returning. 120 to 144 wasn't a very big jump. 144 to 160, even 120 to 160 wasn't a huge jump. Um, there was and then they went even further up to like 240, and I think they even had a monitor or a TV that was capable of 480, and it was just like nobody could tell a difference between like 165. Like they could barely tell a difference if they were like, and even most of the people who were in the test were like, I could even just be like, this could all just be in my head. It might even just be placebo effect, but like I feel like I can tell a difference between 120 and 165, or even like anywhere in between, like 130, 144. But they're like, realistically, mm-hmm, yeah. Yeah, my friend got this exact same monitor that I have, but he got the slightly smaller version. Instead of the 27-inch, he got the 24-inch that could go up to 165. And he was like, I've done side by side, or not side by side because he only got one, but back to back, I should say, comparisons. And he was like, I should have got the slightly bigger monitor and just stuck with 144 because he's like, I can't tell a difference between 144 and 160, 165 or whatever. There's also like monitor, like, again, something that I like. I don't claim to be. I don't claim to be like an expert on it, but like I do remember reading. Like I don't recall all of it, so like I may be misquoting it. I guess is the better way to put it. Like, but I remember watching this thing where part of the reason why certain monitor sizes are cheaper, especially as time goes on, is because what they do is when they make a monitor, like your monitor itself was like a tiny portion of a giant fucking LCD that they made. It's kind of like the way they do when they make processors. They make them on this giant wafer, and they can get a certain number of processors out of that wafer. They do the same thing with the LCD screens. They'll take like this big like 200-inch monstrosity thing and then cut monitor sizes out of it and try to get as little waste as possible. And certain sizes actually fit like really efficiently in, because they have to like get a whole new machine if they want to do a different size. So like it's kind of like they'll upgrade and invest in like improvements like incrementally. Same with like processor nodes. That's why when COVID hit, one of the things that ended up being the reason for such a technology shortage for a while wasn't for a very short period of time. I think it was like 1 or 2 weeks. The fabs shut down while COVID was, scaring everybody. And then they finally, they started to kind of realize, okay, we can do this, we can do that, we can take these precautions, we can make it not a concern. And they were like, okay, we're good to go. You can come back to work with these precautions. And the fabs were back up and running pretty quickly. But what ended up exacerbating the problem is that a lot of companies anticipated a huge shortage in certain industries, and others like like one that I was familiar with at the time because it was something that I was working on, like I was working directly with, was the chips they need for the newer like semi trucks. For example, Kenworth and Peterbilt are owned by the same company. I can't remember the name of the parent company, but they cut their orders. They cut their orders way back because they anticipated not needing to manufacture so many. And then they realized, like, oh, never mind, the demand's actually pretty high. But what had happened is, by the time they realized that, a lot of industries that were booming noticed that like there was more fab capacity available for purchase because a lot of those companies had canceled their purchase orders thinking that COVID was going to cause this big like loss in revenue and like like loss in orders. So by the time they realized that they didn't need it, they couldn't buy back nearly so much as what they needed, and so it ended up putting this weird shift in the industry, and that's why like until recently, like I mean, like just a few months ago, even graphics cards even were still like stupidly expensive because there was not so much like at first everyone thought, oh, the fabs just aren't making enough, which for like a short period of time, like I said, a week or two, so they got a week or two delay because of COVID, but it ended up being the huge demand paired with the industry swinging wildly, out of its normal like routine because of COVID, and then like a huge demand, like so many people started working from home, and even people who like lost their jobs, still were home a lot and ended up, getting more like TVs or computers to like keep themselves busy and occupied, or at least from an entertainment perspective. And so it was just this shitstorm of like the worst combination. So it was right, right, yeah, not for the same reason, not because of COVID, but that's basically why I started streaming. It's like, well, I'm gonna be home a lot, and I just went from owning my own business for almost a couple of years, so I'm used to fucking just putting in that 10, 12, 14-hour day worth of work, grinding it. So I was like, oh shit, I may as well put that time investment into streaming something. Well,
Confirming this hardpoint. Deployed. Location updated. Enemy UAV active.
you guys got going on today?
Hostile UAV in the area. Hardpoint compromised. Secure the area.
Just
Quick fix online.
gonna make some phone calls and run a few errands, and one of the phone calls I gotta make is to the ISP. For some reason, we're getting like way lower speeds than we should be getting, so I gotta figure out why the fuck
Package incoming.
that's happening.
Locating the next hardpoint. Get ready. Area updated. Move to the hub. The enemy's gaining ground. Push them back.
For what?
Friendly UAV on station. Enemy precision airstrike. Find cover. Enemies inside the perimeter. Counter UAV is on station. Hardpoint compromised. Secure the area. eliminated. Secure the target area. Hardpoint compromised. Area. Enemy UAV overhead. Reloading. Enemies inside the perimeter. Confirming next hardpoint. Stand by.
Why are you gay?
I know the way.
Why are you running?
Chubby little kid.
Capture the hardpoint. UAV active.
Bro, shit's way too good right now.
What, the show?
It's way too happy.
Yup.
Some shit's gotta happen. Oh my god, why has it got such a big... Why is that so... Why the... At first I was gonna say its head.
Be online.
Why has it got such a big head? But it's like a big ass baby. Holy shit.
That's a big
Couldn't
ass
afford the
baby.
toddler.
Dude, that baby's huge.
Couldn't afford the toddler actors, you know?
Dude, he was dressed up a midget. I hope I could say that on stream.
Hey,
Little
hey,
person.
Little
they
person.
like being called midgets, okay?
Honestly, if I was a midget, I'd want to be called a midget, not
all
a little
joking
person.
aside, it is genuinely one of those things where literally it will depend on the person you talk to. They'll be like, "Don't call me a little person. That's demeaning." Like,
Yeah, either way, you're fucked.
you know. But then other people will be like,
But
they'll
dwarfs work.
claim the same with midget or dwarf. It's like, I don't know.
Fuck you.
They'll
that's what it's like.
fucking make up a way in their own goddamn mind, even if only subconsciously, to be offended about fucking, if you say you breathe oxygen, they'll be like, it's racist. It's like, how? And it's,
Little
it's
man.
only, it only exists in their mind. There's just too much of it. Like, they're fucking imploding. They're eating themselves alive. Like, literally 95% of people I've talked to who would even self-identify as, like, being on the left will be like, I hate the left more than I hate the right. Even being a leftist myself,
Like
it's
actual
like, because,
people on the left, not the radical.
yep, because they'll be like, I'm just tired of it. I'm just tired of the flip-floppy inconsistency. And you get that on, out of anybody, regardless of their political affiliation. But it seems to be, for whatever reason, a very concentrated thing on the left, and it's because they, without, even if you give them the benefit of the doubt, which, I don't necessarily personally agree with this, but playing devil's advocate, let's even give them the benefit of the doubt and say they weren't even doing it on purpose. It became, even if only unintentionally, a game of who's the bigger victim, and they just, it's almost like a little kid who falls and gets hurt and gets attention, and then the friend or the brother or whatever, it's like, oh, but I got hurt too, and then it's like, but I got hurt worse. It's like, it's
True.
children who never
Usually the
mentally
people who are
matured.
like Democrats are actually on the left. They hate the radicals.
Yep. Well, it's just, the vast majority of them are people who just never mentally matured. Like, I mean, it sounds fucking calloused and hard, but the sad, hard reality of it is life is a big fucking sack of shit. And no matter how much it hurts your feelings, and no matter how shitty it feels, it's just the fucking fortunate reality of it. And so many of them are just, instead of accepting that and doing what they can about it, they would rather whine about it and try to, just complain instead of, like, I'm a victim for this reason or that reason, instead of being like, well, you know what? Yeah, this sucks. And I'm fucking screwed by this thing. So I'm going to get to work on doing something about it. which still from an
Yep.
objective perspective isn't fair or right. Like I don't think anybody disagrees with them. Where people find the disagreement is in that most of them, that's all they'll do about it. It's like the joke between men and women. Like women sometimes just want to complain and whine. That's the stereotype. Like there's comedians who'll say that. Like I don't want my boyfriend or husband or whatever to present a solution to me. I want him just to shut up and listen to me complain. And while it's funny and it's a joke, it's it's truth. I can even say that I've even been in a similar position myself. Sometimes I don't want advice or help. I want somebody to listen to, and whatever it is that's frustrating me. I just, so it's presented as a joke of like men versus women, but when taken appropriately, it is just that. It is just a joke because anyone can identify at least to an extent. But if you're looking at it from purely a statistical perspective, generally it is more likely that a woman's gonna feel like that because more often than not that is the common complaint. Like a man's going to think of a solution, and whether that's the right or the wrong way to go about it, isn't what I'm saying. I'm just saying that that's just the reality of it. Generally speaking, a man's going to usually think of a solution, and generally speaking, girls who get together and are in that same situation are going to just offer that shoulder, be like, I know it sucks, like I don't have anything to offer you for it, but I can confirm your feelings that it sucks. So, in a similar fashion to that dynamic.
That's a good part right here, Austin. Sorry. There you go.
Oh, sorry, I didn't realize. I keep forgetting you guys are watching the show.
No, you're good. You're good. I was just telling him like, hey, make sure you look at this because this is hilarious, and then we're good.
I just.
One second. There it is.
I keep forgetting you're watching that show.
No, you're good, man. Fighting. No fucking fighting.
Jesus Christ.
That's it.
I had subtitles, so you weren't like you're good. So
Yeah, no, you're good, man. Oh, that's funny.
I just was kind of pointing out, like at least from my perspective or whatever, that's been a pretty common thing. Is that even people who are on the left, they would tell you themselves they identify as like a leftist. They're tired of the left like basically eating itself alive because it's people who instead of realizing this fucking sucks, I'm going to work on doing something about it, or at the very least just accept it and move on and do what I can in life, affect and control what I can affect and control. And to clarify and to give a disclaimer, like obviously the whole point that I'm making is that it's not everyone on the left acts like this. The reality of it is there's a lot of people on the left who are genuinely like realistic. Whether I agree with them or not, they're
but the radicals
decent,
are the loudest.
They're decent, good people who realize that there's as much garbage on the left as anywhere else, and they themselves are sick of it. So if anyone's ever watching this who's like, oh, I'm a leftist, it's like, well, if you're not a mental child and you don't play the victim game, then I'm obviously not talking to you. I'm talking about the ones who do that and make the rest of you look bad.
Yep.
And it's like that's a complaint.
Sarah's pretty left, but we all can't stand her mom because she's a communist.
Right?
It's like radical.
Yep. Yeah, and that's the thing is like they themselves are getting sick of the garbage because it's like anybody who it's like as an example like I support the police, and it's extra frustrating to me to see the ones who are shitty bad apples because it's extra frustrating to me that those ones are making the ones that I support look bad, and they're making me look bad for supporting them. It's like it hurts everyone involved when you get that like bad apple of the bunch type of deal.
Yep.
And that's what a lot of left leaning people are so frustrated about is it's like, well, you know what? They're conflating issues and making the rest of us look bad, and it's extra frustrating because they're just hurting us. Like the factual feminist lady says that a lot. She's like, it's extra frustrating for me to see the garbage of the third wave feminism because it's like it's spitting in the face of what I have spent my whole life fighting for and working toward. And even she herself has mentioned a few times what I've said for years, and that's that in hindsight, You know, it's not really a thing that is a complaint or like a criticism because it's not something that anybody could have known ahead of time. I mean, maybe, but you don't want to get caught up in that argument because who the fuck knows, and it's neither
Yeah,
here nor
it's not
there
worth it.
nor important because hindsight is 2020. But in reality, looking back, they probably should have picked a better name because feminism genuinely does confuse the shit out of people because they're thinking, oh, like for women, it's like it's like what if you said masculinism,
Well, it's like they
or
say
whatever.
that's how they fight though. It's like they say Antifa. They're like, oh, we're anti-fascist. I'm like, no, you guys are like actual
Yeah,
fascists.
the irony, the fucking irony.
Yeah, like my girlfriend, she's like, I told her like I can't stand this, and the people who are rioting like Antifa, she goes, Antifa are like anti-fascism, Caleb. Like they are not fascist. I'm like, oh my god, oh my god. Like my fucking brain just starts short circuiting.
It's like that's the most frustrating part is because you don't know if people like that are trolling you. You don't know if they're genuinely
Yeah.
retarded or if they're just ignorant and like don't understand, or if they're just malicious. Because like it's like you can't look at things that make so clear cut, obvious. Like if you're not looking at it from an emotional perspective, most of the time, objectively and logically speaking, most objective, logic based reasoning more often than not aligns with right leaning politics. Not always, but most of the time. And that was actually like a meme for years.
That's
Was
true.
like, hey, I'm a leftist and I hate logic and reasoning because genuinely speaking, if you look at the stats, you look at the numbers, you look at the objective reporting, you look at the logical reasoning behind things, most of the time that's where you're going to fall. And not that it's a bad thing, but just purely for the sake of the conversation, the emotional reactions generally come from the left. And that's where their arguments are like, oh well, you're just a heartless emotional bastard. It's like, no, it's not that I don't have emotions, I'm just not letting them control my political opinions. And if you're being fair to pretty much any situation, I'm of the opinion that even if I genuinely disagree with somebody, there's a good chance that I might at least understand them better after a conversation with them. So even if I feel like even if going into something I'm betting on learning nothing, or not necessarily learning nothing, but changing my mind on nothing to be more accurate, I will still, entertain a conversation and a discussion with somebody because there's at least a chance that I'll learn. At the very least, I'll at least
Well, it's like with
understand
most, I can
them
know
better.
why they feel that way. Like I understand it.
If I understand them better at the very least after the conversation, that's a win to some degree for me personally. And not everybody feels like that, obviously, but that's usually the way I approach it. And, when you can have an actually intellectual, mature, like, not name calling, fit throwing conversation with somebody, even if you completely disagree with them, it can still be a productive conversation. Even if neither person changes their opinions or, would switch sides or however you want to phrase it. Even if purely knowledge and understanding is all that's gained as a result, that's still a win because I feel like people I feel like people who disagree with each other can very effectively thoroughly disagree with each other and still productively work toward a solution that benefits everyone if you just aren't a child that throws a fit.
Yeah, very
So
true.
it's like, that's the one thing I go into a lot of conversations that I have with people, even when or especially when we disagree on things, is like, hey, here's the thing. I want to make this clear from the get-go before it gets lost in conversation or anybody gets upset or offended or whatever. It's like at the end of the day, I feel like we can agree on these core things. And usually what those core things are is that at the end of the day, neither of us want to see people suffer or be hurt. We want, even if we disagree on the means whereby it's gone about, we can agree at least that the outcome of what we are seeking is, a better situation for everybody. We want people to more freedom, not less. We want people to have, a better quality of living, not a lower one. And it'll just be like, I think it serves everyone involved to just begin a conversation like that, because then at the end of the day, throughout the conversation, you can reference, be like, hey, like, yet again, coming back to what I started out with, is even if we disagree on the means about, going about something, we can at least remember when I said we definitely both say that we agree with, and where you run into problems is when people start trying to tell you what you believe. It's like, well, if that was true, then this, that, and the other. It's like, here's the point: you don't understand where I'm coming from, and you don't agree with me, because if you did, you wouldn't have a different opinion on it. Like, that's the whole premise behind
No.
different opinions. So
Yeah.
it's like, unless you want me to start playing that same game, I can undercut. Here's the thing: is that I have a distinct advantage as a more right-leaning political person, that I have logic and reasoning on my side. So if you want to start using it to undercut, be like, well, if this was true, then that wouldn't be the case, or if this is the case, then that's inaccurate. It's like, I will beat you at that game without even trying, because that is on my side by default. So I'm not trying to play this emotional reaction game type of deal, because it just doesn't work. You can't, first of all, you can't equate one person's emotion versus another. Like, for example, something might happen to the same thing might happen to two different people, and it might more detrimentally affect one person than the other, not because the one who's less affected is better, or on the other end of the spectrum, because they are heartless and emotionless. It's like, maybe just for whatever fucking reason they handled it better, not because they're a better person. Maybe that their situation and shit they had to work on in life and deal with just happened to better prepare them to deal with that same situation. So it's like, you can't look at things through the lens of emotion, because if you're gauging a person's like morality or like integrity based on the way they emotionally react to something, then some of the best people who ever existed would be looked at as monsters, because of their relatively calm, quiet reaction to something that was a pretty heinous thing. And so it's like, that's where so many people on the left get so frustrated with other people on the left, is because it just, like I said, even giving them the benefit of the doubt, saying that most of them probably didn't even realize it, or they weren't doing it on purpose or actively, consciously. What ended up being the unfortunate result of the past decade or so is that it became a who's the bigger victim game, and it just frustrates everyone. Understandably, leftists most of all, because they're like, oh, those fucks are making me look bad. It's like, yeah, you're right, but I mean, shit, sorry, I feel for you. Like,
My big thing is, if you have an emotional response to something along that nature, then that means you have a tribalistic relationship with your party affiliation, and you need a reality check. That's not cool. That's literally like on verge of cultism type shit. And I do believe majority of the left right now, because of the Overton window shifting, I call the radicals pretty much the left. Like, those people it's literally a cult. I mean, there's no other way to put it. Granted, there's the right, far right, whatever the fuck you want to call it, that is somewhat like that too, but they don't have the corporate foothold that these other people do. And it's just disgusting. Like, Sarah will get emotionally triggered over something dumb, I don't know. And it's like, it's tribalism. Like, that's literally disgusting. Like, I'm not talking about this with you. I'm sorry. Not until you have an untribalistic hold on your party's affiliation. I'm not gonna have this discussion. It's not worth it.
right.
So we don't talk about that.
Yeah, I've had to have
What
a
time is it?
similar unfortunate
11.
kind of like laying out ground rules with somebody. A couple people I've had conversations like that in the past. It's like, hey, like, at the end of the day,
Yeah.
I can tell you right now that even if we walk away from this conversation completely disagreeing, if we never speak to each other again, it won't be because of me. I'm not going to hold it against you that we
Yep.
disagree, because I'm not looking at this emotionally. I'm looking at it logically, and I'm looking
Nope.
at it rationally. I'm looking at it statistically. And at the end of the day, if we just simply disagree, that's fine. Like, I don't have anything against people who I completely politically disagree with, or anywhere in between. And I'm not necessarily best friends with people who agree with every single word that comes out of my mouth. If anything, a smart person, politically speaking, is suspicious. If maybe even a little more
Yep.
so of people who patently agree with everything they say, because it's almost like, are you actually looking at this analytically, or are you just kind of following, like, not necessarily that that's a bad thing. Everybody's got to fake it till they make it, but at the end of the day, it's like that's genuinely the way I approach it, is from like a logic and reasoning perspective. And I don't claim that my logic or my reasoning is perfect and sound and without fault. Like, maybe I'm looking at something wrong, but that's the whole point of the discussion.
It's the greatest in the world. It's the greatest.
Right? It's just the best. There's just no competition.
Yeah, absolutely.
So yeah, it's like, I don't know. To me, that's like the whole premise for me behind any discussion I've ever had with anybody, is that because I am self-aware that I do not know everything, I not only am willing to accept the fact that there's a possibility, but I'm willing to admit that there's almost all but guaranteed possibility or reality of the fact that I have bias. Everyone is like, even when you can't see it, like, it's impossible not to grow up in a situation, because whether you realize it or not, you're affected either negatively or positively by your environment growing up. And even if only for that reason, even if only biased because of those reasons, a person
Yeah.
cannot exist without bias. Like, even the ones who are very self-aware.
Like, I was raised. Yeah.
Oh, go ahead.
Nah, I was raised Christian conservative. That's how I was raised. But over time, I mean, now just how ridiculous everything is, and like literally the massive shift of the Overton window. Like, my core beliefs of, I love my country, I believe in the rule of law and the Constitution, and I have a very standard belief in God. Like, I mean, I wouldn't say I don't really affiliate with any religious group just because I think religion is, power and all that shit, but I believe in personal faith. Like, just having that, people are like, oh my God, you're far right. And it's like, dude, what? No, like, I don't believe in everything like I was raised with. Over time, you kind of craft yourself, but you have a set standard of like values that you're raised with that kind of stay. Or in other words, bias, I guess. What time is it? Fuck me, I gotta go to the shop in like 10 minutes.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to make a few phone calls and run some errands and stuff.
I can't turn the shit in here tonight.
Mm. Oh man. Yeah, yeah. Oh, I'm not sure. Like, later at some point. Oh, I have to. They're not open yet. They might actually be open here in like 1 minute. But I have to call the ISP and figure out what's going on with the internet. Fortunately, it's still good enough to stream, even though like it's like on the other end of the spectrum. Like, I had to back the speeds down to like my bit rate is on like the lowest end of what you can, what YouTube will accept as adequate for 1080p 60. Whereas before I was streaming in the higher bitrate end for 1080p 60 or whatever, so it's functional, unfortunately. But I'll still have to get with them on like why it's not coming through like the speeds that we're paying for, and be like, all right, like either fix this or we got to figure something out. I think there's just like I think there's just something that needs to be tweaked because they were working on something with the tower that because the other our old option was DSL. That's the only physical connection option we have where I live. Is DSL. The other alternative options are like your typical ones. Like I tried Starlink. It was much to my dismay, it was shit. Where I live, there's a lot of people who get really good service with it, but not where I live. Unfortunately,
we get pretty good out here in the sticks in Florida.
Yeah, where they send the old satellites over, drastically affects positively or negatively what you get, or like, there's like wireless service. They offer their internet packages like Verizon and T-Mobile and all that. But there's a company around here that basically takes that same concept, but instead of like, doing wireless cell phone service in conjunction with wireless home internet and all that shit, like that's all they focus on. Like that's all their hardware does is wireless home internet. And it comes off the same tower as like, well, not necessarily, but in my situation or in my particular case, it happens to come off the same tower that like the cell signal receivers and transmitters are mounted to the very top of the tower, and their equipment's like, a little ways down so they don't interfere with each other or whatever, but it comes off the same physical tower. So you just get line of sight and it just beams it, and it's really close. If you had a long distance to go and there was, potential obstructions and all that shit, you'd maybe run into problems. But in our situation, we're actually pretty lucky that other than the ping being technically a bit higher, not much, other than the ping being a little bit higher, this newer internet's significantly better than the hardwired DSL that we had before it. So it's been great up until, this past few days. That's part of the reason I wasn't streaming. I was busy. I was also kind of just not really feeling super in the mood for COD at the moment. I'm kind of waiting until I think tomorrow is when they come out with the couple new maps and some of the patches that are also supposed to come out with performance improvements. So I'm kind of hoping all that helps a little bit. And I know there for like a couple days, the three of us trying to match up to play some COD, and seemed like we were having a hard time getting connected on at the same time and all that shit. All that combined with my internet being kind of goofy and me needing to take care of some errands anyways, I was just like, fuck it, okay, I'm gonna take a couple days and just handle this shit. But I'm gonna hop out of Discord and make a few phone calls. I got another errand to run. Hopefully I'll get my internet weirdness all figured out, and then I don't know what you guys are planning on doing later as far as playing or whatever, but
I'm not sure yet. Maybe though.
All right, well,
I'll probably be on unless I go fishing, which I might. I don't know yet.
okay.
Fishing.
Fishing.
All right, well, I'll be back in a little bit and we'll go from there.
Alrighty.
Sounds good, man. Later.
Bye.
Coventry Lake.